podcast on sci-fi, philosophy, religion, politics, gaming, and anything else taboo.
Taboo.
I'm here with Tara Smith, extraordinaire.
Yes.
Academic. I don't know what else.
Operating thetan number 3.
Lover of cats and all things intergalactic and stellar.
Yes, that's me. How are you?
All right, my name's Banasik, by the way. No introduction for me, but I don't need one. That's okay.
No introductions necessary.
No, not at all. We've got our e-meters strapped on, or we're strapped into our e-meters. We're holding our e-meters.
Yep.
Something.
Yep.
We're taking.
And we are going to get so clear, like super clear.
We're going to be like, wow.
Yep.
Like the Tom Cruise video. The pow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
right.
Man. We have watched so much Scientology stuff, and what I really love is the same stock footage and just watching it 4 times. Basically, was my favorite part of the same footage.
Right, and then the same roads that are shown, and the same buildings, and the same.
Yeah. Do you know I've been there, Ben? I've been to the Hollywood headquarters. Did I tell you that?
Yeah. Did you see? I was gonna ask a follow-up thing that you went to the Hollywood headquarters and you'd seen these movies before.
Yes.
And did you try and go down the closed road?
I didn't, but I went to because that was outside, I think, of LA. I can't remember where it was, but I don't think it was right in LA. But I went to the blue building with like the. Yeah, I went there and I stood in front and took photos, which was awesome. And then I went inside and they're like, "Oh, do you want to watch some of these videos? Do you want a tour?" And I'm like, "No. Like, I want the real tour. I want to like see some stuff. I've been here before. This is my first rodeo." And they're like, "Oh, okay. Well, we can show you inside some of the building." I'm like, "Yes." And so they basically but I said I was smart because I'm like, I only have half an hour, so I didn't want to get stuck to do anything. So you always give them a time limit and you never give them your real details. That's always my rules with Scientology, right? No real phone number, no real address. So anyway,
we're like openly talking about Scientology. Yeah.
Yeah, and so then I walk in and they show me like some of their education rooms where they do training, and then they showed me the sauna, which I was super excited because I love saunas. So I got to have a look at it and their sort of medical facility and have a good little walk around. And that was really awesome, because I found them really like quite accommodating for that part. But then obviously if I'd wanted to see deeper things, like there was limited things I could see, but I liked not just getting the same videos, because often they'll sit you in front and watch the same infomercial kind of videos, which I've already seen. So I was like, I want to see something different. And then I just left and that was fine. But yeah, I've had a bit more run-ins with the Australian Scientologists. That was my only American run-in with them. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to be interested to see if you went down like to the out of the place out of LA to see if it
No, I didn't do that.
Or not a public road, because allegedly it's a public road. But
I actually stumbled upon the headquarters. I didn't know we were there, but all the streets are like L. Ron Hubbard Road, and like that whole area is fully owned by Scientology. But we walked upon it by accident. I was super excited when they were handing out the personality tests. I was like, Tom, the Scientologists are here. And then we grabbed the little piece of paper and like went for a little tour, and yeah, it was awesome.
That's good. So before, we're going to jump around a lot, I think, because a lot of the stuff is it flows between everything that we watched. But maybe we talk about quickly what we did. What were our prescribed texts, if you like, for the period?
Good idea.
So the first one, we're going to sequentially, I guess, in age order. Is Jon Ronson's "For the Love of Scientology," a TV documentary that was filmed, which features 6 Scientologists.
And it's part of a series, I believe, and I think this was the first episode of the For the Love of series.
Yeah. And Ronson's style is to try and sit down with people and not judgmental at all, similar to Theroux and I guess John Safran, in like just trying to get to know where these people are from their own words, and seeing what ticks about them, which is
and that was 1997.
1997. So yeah, expect very 90s styled dress and camera angles and couch, and I love it. It's basically my garage at the moment. So yeah, And what I wear all the time as well. If I had hair to have frizzed, I would have it frizzed for sure. Yeah, full perm for sure.
Yep.
Okay, so there's that. And then we skip ahead quite some time to Going Clear and the Prison of Belief, which was a movie, and it's shot. It's almost interview style of lots of people who are in Scientology, but they've organized it so it has a story arc, if you like.
Wait, you mean Going Clear? You mean they were in Scientology? None of them are still currently members.
No,
not
no,
a one.
they're all ex-members. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, their interviews are all cut so that they're going back and forth, but they're not interviewed in the same place. So it's a movie.
Yep.
And one of
That's
the
right.
people that features as part of that is Marty Rathburn. And we watched a Vice interview which unpacks a lot of the movie a little bit further after that. And then he also features in our fourth video, which is the Louis Theroux's My Scientology movie.
Yeah. And just to go back to Going Clear, so that was 2015. It was directed by Alex Gibney and produced by HBO. And then My Scientology movie has Louis Theroux, 2016, and directed by John Dower.
Yeah. Yeah, and Theroux's style is to try and sit down with people and get to know them. At this point, he's trying to do it, and the whole Going Clear movie is about to come out. So Scientology is in protection mode. So he was unable actually to get any interviews with Scientologists that are part of the church. He did try, and he's openly, shown evidence that he actually did try to go to quite extensive efforts to sit down with people and get that experience. He ends up trying to unpack exactly what Marty's experience was inside the Sea Org, which we can define in a moment. And he then sets it up with lots of actors to try and experience what it would have been like to be in the higher echelons of Scientology, based upon Marty Rathburn's words. And as part of that experience, he then comes into contact with quite a number of Scientologists that confront him and ask him what he's doing and ask him to get off a public road, which may or may not be a public road. I like how that's a pinnacle part of the movie writing. Like, it's very Theroux-like. Like, to get something so arbitrary, like the road, and then to end the movie going, by the way, it was a public road. I was right.
Yep,
Public
totally.
road.
And they do a lot of acting reenactments. So they hire actors to play David Miscavige and Tom Cruise because they aren't able to. And I also believe that there must be some major restrictions on what footage of Scientology they can actually show, because there's a lot of videos that educational videos they release, but I imagine there's a lot of copyrights because, as everybody probably knows, Scientologists are very good at litigation. So there's a limit of that. So they did a lot of reenactments about Marty Rathburn's account, especially when he was stuck in the hole, as well as an interview that David Miscavige did in the beginning, his very first interview. I can't remember who with, but that was the only recording that he has done, I think, and he hasn't been doing any interviews since. So very reclusive guy now, I think.
There's a couple of interviews, but yeah, you're right. That's the only long-form interview that he's got. The other ones are just file videos coming from Scientology. But there's also
that's right.
recordings of the I don't know if you call them conferences, but mass church services and conferences.
Oh, the big celebrations. I think they're like might have been Aaron Howard's 100th birthday or something. I can't, like 100th anniversary year or something like that.
And then there's also the end of litigation celebration, and there's lots of different videos where he's actually saying these big speeches. The awarding of Tom Cruise's medal, he does a speech at that as well. There's a speech when L. Ron Hubbard had moved on or passed. So he's
and they all use that, like they all use the same sort of speeches. We were so excited to talk about Scientology, Ben. We didn't do any preamble.
Yeah. Sorry. So
straight in there.
Before we go, so we're operating at the moment at least an OT5. So let's go back to a 2 level.
Yeah.
How have you been? What's been going on?
I've been pretty good. Just been sort of staying at home and watching the Victorian cases go up and down and getting a bit kind of trying not to get too obsessive with COVID-19.
Staying safe.
Trying to think.
Staying
Pardon?
safe. Staying safe.
Staying safe. Stay safe. Yeah, I wish people would stop saying that. So annoying.
Yeah.
I'm
Customers
trying to think of anything.
I haven't seen for quite some time come in the store, and they're like, "Oh, how have you been? Okay, stay safe." I'm like, Thanks.
Yeah.
Say back to that. It's like saying to, when you're going on an air flight, when you used to be able to catch planes, and you're at the airport, and the hostess or the concierge says to you, have a good flight, and you're like, thanks. You too.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can't even think of one interesting thing I did since we last talked. I'm sure there was something interesting I did, but did I do anything? I think I'm doing economics again. You'd be pleased to know.
I was asked.
Yep. Oh wait, you said no, obviously.
I'm unavailable.
Yes. Very diplomatic.
Yes. Email that I got as part of it, because someone sent me an email. I won't name any people, but someone sent me an email and it said in the email that someone else said that I was available and very keen to tutor for next semester. And
that's nice.
I politely said I am unavailable.
Fair enough. Yep. So I've got that work kind of ready, which is good because I need some sort of income other than the stipend. So I'm even though it's not my favorite thing, Ben, as you probably know, but I'm very a bit pragmatic, that sort of thing, and just think money's money.
Yeah.
And yeah. But other than that, no, nothing really exciting. So a bit boring. What about you?
I'll move my camera around so you can see. There's a couple of new.
What is it? Oh.
Hang on. Can you see it?
So you got a lot of TVs.
No.
Oh, the Pac-Man.
You're able to see it. Yeah, see that next to the Pac-Man, there's a cab there. I'm calling it.
Yeah, it says game over.
No. To the this way of it. It's a dark corner.
Oh yeah, I can see it. It looks like where you have little play fighting games on it.
Yeah. So I've got a cabinet which looks like it was built in the Soviet Union. I'm calling it.
Oh my god!
And I also have that monitor there, and that was that I picked up. So I've got 2 new arrivals for my garage. I have a Soviet style cabinet, and when I shared the photos of it on the Aussie Arcade page, I put a Russian hat on top of it, along with a Vladimir Putin mug. Saying that now I have a Soviet cab, which is
Can you call it your papers, please, cab?
It looks like actually like the little paper terminal. It's very, very old school. It's got 1.2 in it, so it's really, really nice. So it's a late 80s, early 90s styled cab, and it's very old and very rustic, and it's falling to bits, and I love it to pieces. It's wonderful. And I also have a PVM, which is a 20-inch monitor. Now that's an old monitor that would have been used in TV studios, and 20 inches for a CRT, which is a cathode ray tube old TV, is in no intents and purposes. There's no other way to say it, but it's fucking heavy. It's so fucking heavy. I struggled to get it inside the house, and it's now on a shelf, and it's never moving. I now have to live in this house until I die because that TV is ridiculous. So I now have a 20-inch TV that I can play games on, which is cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. It's very bright, and it's very it's got lots of different settings you can do with it and different things. So I've put my little 6-inch TV on top of the 20-inch TV just to show the size comparison difference.
Nice.
Anyway, so that's my 2 pickups. We are midway through the biggest release schedule that my business has ever had with cards. So
Yu-Gi-Oh, right?
Yep. So the
I thought
rest.
there was a few Yu-Gi-Oh events coming up.
Yeah. So the rest of the Yu-Gi-Oh stock will arrive this week, and then we've got Magic arriving this week as well, and then we've got Pokemon arriving end of next week, I think. And then we've got another Magic set arriving after that as well. It's ridiculous the amount of cards that are going to be coming in and out of the store.
Yep.
Yeah, it's quite. We're quite busy with it. Oh, I had a ding. What was that ding?
I don't know. My internet keeps coming up with the warning. So if I start talking all robotic, it's because my internet's stressing. Is it still recording?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so that's cool. So you're doing lots of card stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, lots and lots. I think that ding was me. I'm going to quit my browser window. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, lots and lots of card stuff. I'm playing Game of the Month for Game of the System, which is Donkey Kong. Yeah, I'm actually playing a boomer game and liking it. It's weird.
Really? I don't like Donkey Kong. I find it really hard. I feel like it's not very satisfying. You get one step dead, one step dead.
Yeah, but every 10 games, you learn how to deal with that step, and then you go that little bit further. I can understand why people play it. It's like smashing your head against a brick wall and slowly through it.
Yep.
Quite enjoyable. It's, yeah, so I'm playing Donkey Kong. I voted for it as a joke because kind of wanted to do a little bit of trolling, and also because I didn't want to play the alternate game that was suggested last month. So this is Game of the System. We play a game every month for those listeners at home. And I ended up voting for Donkey Kong and then threw the vote. So I was the deciding vote at the end of the night.
Nice.
Yeah, midnight, which is nice. And I'm not sorry about my choice, actually. It's quite good. I'm quite pleased.
Yep.
Good game. Good game. So yeah, been doing that. That's about it, really. Lots of work. Lots and lots. As normal. It's a standard.
Oh, I got I put in my extension for my stipend, so that's something I did.
Oh, nice. That's good.
Yep. So I'll get an extra 6 months. So instead of it being due March next year, I'll have till September.
Yeah, very good.
Yep.
Very good.
Yep. I'm also applying to do a graduate certificate too. In higher education at Sydney University. They offer it to staff for free. But yeah, I've applied to potentially do that. Isn't
that a step backwards, or is that something else? Oh, no, that'll be teaching at schools, or no?
No, it sort of just gives you more kind of educational curriculum and kind of skills. So it'll be good if I have to go down an alternate academic path, which is a possibility. So working in education or something like that, or for the government or something. So it just gives you more of a qualification specialized in higher education.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So I just wanted something else to do as well as the PhD. Just something, because I'm not working at the moment. It's just driving me crazy. Because at least I feel like the busier I am, the more productive I am. But the less things I have going on, the less productive I am. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I understand.
Yeah. Yeah. So that should be interesting. Anyway, I'm really excited to get into it. So let's get into it.
Yeah. Let's forget the niceties. All right. So Scientology, back to Thetan level 5 or 6.
Yep. Should we do a basic explanation of what Scientology is?
Yes. Let's start with Mr. Hubbard.
Scientology 101.
Right. So L. Ron Hubbard, he was a sci-fi writer.
Yes, that's right.
And then
pardon?
Then he got on a boat and sailed around the world with Scientologists.
Yes.
And then he went into hiding and then he died. So there's lots of stuff in between there. But that's so his early writings had Scientology in them. Yeah.
That's what they say in Going Clear. They mention a few words that are used in his work, and they use it as a way to discredit him. I think that their description of L. Ron Hubbard was really scathing. I did not like the way that they did it at all. I think they left a lot of things out in his history as well, and it just seemed like a very expose style, which I found the whole style of Going Clear to be like that. Because at one point, they were using was both trying. They went back and forth, and they didn't always provide all the information too, which I found really frustrating. But L. Ron Hubbard, basically, he's a bit of a liar. And you can see that in a lot of his accounts. Like, he'll say that and you see them talk about how he sunk all these ships during the war, which he didn't end up sinking, and all this sort of stuff when he was in the Navy. I think he was a Navy sea captain or something like that. But yeah, he wrote science fiction. He wrote about 450 science fiction works before he wrote Dianetics, and he continued to write science fiction even after he wrote Dianetics. And a lot of people use that as a way to discredit the science fiction elements that are in the Scientology religion, which is very basically they believe that civilizations are millions of years old, that there was an intergalactic. So basically, humans were aliens, I guess, and they were in a different planet with Xenu, who basically dumped all these bodies. It's it's a lot more complicated, and I'm probably explaining it really badly. But anyway, they get all these people from one planet, dump them into a volcano. They became thetans, and they became our souls. But we also have several other thetans that are attached to us that are also like bad traumas and memories that attach. And so when you do your auditing with an e-meter, and that's when you hold the little cans.
Yep. So take a step back. So an e-meter is so you're holding the cans, and it's an electrical pulse, and it's got a reader, like a old scale, and it's going back and forth, and it's picking up where your energy is based on.
Yep, exactly. And the main thing, it is really just psychoanalysis, essentially, and it's about going through your traumas. And so when L. Ron Hubbard wrote that, he wrote it as a way to try and revolutionize psychotherapy. And he wrote it as a science, and he sent that out to a lot of psychologists, and they basically just ridiculed him. And so he came back and he worked through it, and eventually he created a religion. And the way that Going Clear explains it is that basically, and a lot of people explain it, is that L. Ron Hubbard got frustrated. He couldn't make money from his Dianetics one way, so he decided to create a religion. I personally don't believe that that's true. I believe Hubbard was really genuine in thinking this stuff helped people, and it was probably already a religious aspects of it when it was a science. I mean, it was a whole belief system that you were having to be a part of to participate in it. So to me, it doesn't seem like a big kind of slam dunk that Scientology is crazy because L. Ron Hubbard was, doing it as a science and then wrote it as a religion. To me, it's sort of like potato. Like there was beliefs involved in both, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I think it gets back to. So I think we need to put on the outset where we come from in defining what religion is, because people are going to be listening to this and they come from lots of different backgrounds, or they don't have an academic understanding of what religion is. So I think it's helpful. Just read what Emil Durkheim said about religion, and this is basically where sociologists, philosophers, and people who study religion in a academic, non-partisan way define religion as. Most of them. Some of them don't, but this is generally where you can group all people in. So Durkheim says that religion is defined as a unified system of belief and practices relative to sacred things. That is to say, things that are set apart and forbidden, beliefs and practices which unite into one single moral community called a church, and all those who adhere to them. So if we define religion as that, all you need to do is really have a single uniform system of beliefs, believe that something is sacred. So that's bringing in, the aspects of sacred and profanity, separation, and things which are morally standing towards you. And then you can actually start defining a lot more things as religion, which aren't traditionally called religion. Now, churches and people who are religious fight back against that. And that's problematic on a number of different reasons. When you're looking at new religious movements, it's problematic. It's also problematic for Eastern religions, because Confucianism and Taoism may not be religions then. If you're saying, well, no, you should be baptized into the church and you should be a card-carrying member of that church. So in that regard, if we're going to be following the Durkheimian definitions, then I would agree with you that yes, Scientology is definitely religion. It has a moral standing. It has a system of beliefs. It has aspects to it where it defines certain things as sacred and certain things as profane, and therefore it is a religion. That's all it needs to be. And actually, it goes further because there are card-carrying members of a church. So it actually goes further than Confucianism, Taoism, a lot of Eastern religions. So for me, there is no question that yes, it is a religion.
Yeah, and not only that, but I think that there was religious aspects of it before it was dubbed as L. Ron Hubbard doing it as a religion. I believe even as a science, it had religious aspects to it because it was a shared belief system. The Thetan theory and all the stuff to do with the soul was still incorporated in Dianetics. That wasn't removed from prior to it becoming a religion. So when Going Clear is doing that introduction on Hubbard, they use that as a way to discredit it and say that basically he tried it as a science, it didn't work, and so he thought, how can I make more money out of people? Oh, I'll turn it into a religion. But I mean, he could have made money as a scientist anyway. Anyway, there's so many issues that I have with Going Clear, but I'll just stop there. But just going back, so the thetans are basically like your soul, but then there's negative thetans that will kind of latch onto you, that which through going through auditing you can rid yourself of them, and they also come as post-traumatic stresses really. And so they talk about how in this life or a past life, if you've had a traumatic experience, and I won't go into the reactive analytical mind because I think we'll talk more about it in relation to the Jon Ronson thing, but anyway, they're basically in the video, the Dianetics, some of the Scientology videos they use example of a strawberry. So as a kid, you eat a strawberry and then afterwards you get sick and you vomit. And so then you associate the strawberries later in life with feeling nauseous. So even though you know the strawberries didn't make you sick, that's the sort of thing that comes up. And so that's sort of like both a negative thetan, but also a traumatic memory, which then Scientologists by auditing would try and rid that off from you so that you cannot be in that, have those traumas. So at its very core, Dianetics is to me very simple and quite a positive thing. It's talk therapy, it's psychoanalysis, which is trying to look at your core being and the tics and the things that have made you who you are and try and make you a kind of happier person. So I don't think there's anything controversial personally with either Dianetics or even the theories around Xenu and intergalactic things and that sort of stuff. I think that just looking at that and thinking, wow, that's whack, therefore Scientology is evil, or therefore Scientology isn't a religion, is just stupid because it's all based on context, right? Like what I think is stupid or what I think is unbelievable in religions might be different to what somebody else thinks is unbelievable. So that in itself is not enough for me to discredit Scientology.
Yep.
Do you think?
No, I agree. So someone who's brought up in the Abrahamic faiths and understands the world, going into my young adulthood, I was surprised to hear of religions which sort of are outside of that boundary. But I was always curious, and you're right. If you've got a sense of what is supernatural beliefs, then how can you put one supernatural belief over another supernatural belief? In regards to the money aspect of it, I think so that's a separate matter, and a matter of church organization, and that's where we can talk about the documentaries where they get into discussing how things are in the Sea Org and how things are organized as part of the church.
Yeah.
What I found interesting, which is quite revelatory, is Rathburn's interview with Vice. He says that he tried to push for reforms for the church, and believes that for the church's very own existence, that they should be allegorizing a lot of the belief system, because some of the stuff is really out there and doesn't work or is just not true, and therefore for the safety of the church and for the ongoing aspects of the church, allegory could be a way of actually saving it. Now that's actually quite early in a church for that to come up. Usually it comes a few hundred years after, as it did with Christianity around 300. where people were allegorizing aspects of Christian belief. Judaism, it took a while, and it's been an ongoing nature of those two belief systems. Islam, it took actually a lot longer. But yeah, generally it'll take quite some time. We're just a couple of moments in the human aspect of history. We're only a bare few moments away from the death of L. Ron Hubbard, and already there are people calling out for the allegorization of his works, and for the safety of the church. So I think Rathburn actually was coming from a kind space when he's making those suggestions. He's since fallen out from the church, so that's well known, and I think that's due to him speaking publicly against certain organizational elements of the church.
Definitely. And I just want to quickly say one other thing about L. Ron Hubbard, because this is something that I'm quite passionate about and very interested in, because obviously I'm interested in science fiction. So I just wanted to say one other thing about Hubbard science fiction. So they sort of try in the Going Clear to sort of suggest that because he's exploring words like thetans and things in his science fiction, that almost discredits it because he repeats it again when he writes Dianetics. But to me, science fiction has always been used as a way for science fiction writers to develop ideas that are often quite controversial in a safe way. And so, I'm not saying all science fiction writers, but there's a lot of writers that wrote, about Soviet Russia and use their science fiction to really think about certain ideas in a safe space, which they would not have been able to air that publicly, and so I'm not saying that that's what always Hubbard was doing, but I do not think that discredits his ideas at all by saying that, because it's in his science fiction, it must mean that he's just copied his science fiction ideas and put it in a nice little religion bow and then submitted it. I just found that whole thing just really kind of upset me, because I think that science fiction and writing in general is such a creative way of being able to explore all sorts of ideas. So yeah, it just really rubbed me up the wrong way, the Going Clear documentary. I'd already seen it a few years ago and it just really bothered me a second time.
Yeah.
You should have seen me. I was just sitting there fuming like the whole hour long.
Yeah, look, I remember watching Going Clear when it first came out, and I thought, yeah, this is kind of cool because, I knew about the whole anonymous movement against Scientology and, people coming out on the internet speaking up about a moral issue and then being called to actually work against or to bring truth and to shine the light on organisation and organisational crime, which I think is a good thing. But, whether the ends of anonymous, they've since shifted, absolutely. Yeah, I thought watching this the second time round and watching all of these documentaries the second time round, I actually found Ronson's interview a lot better.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, I like Ronson.
Oh, wait, sorry. So you said Ronson, who said Rothburn. Yeah, no, I thought Ronson's was by far my favourite out of the four.
Yeah, I liked Rathburn's Vice interview, probably next.
Yeah, I did not like anything Rathburn said, to be honest. He bothered me throughout all three things that we watched.
Okay. Well, I liked Rathburn's interview with Vice, and I like how he was saying that he's trying to do reform, or was trying to do reform, and then he fell out of stead with the church. And I think that shows more in his motivations than he really gets to say in Scientology movie. I like my Scientology movie probably second or third, and then least Going Clear, because I felt like it just doesn't go far enough or deep enough, and there's no contrasting view as well.
No, exactly. It just felt like almost like a Four Corners report or something, like a full-on expose. It's like, and then this is what they did next, and I just thought it was very sensationalized. And the other thing I have a problem about both my Scientology movie and Going Clear is that they were very American focused. They could have easily gone to another country like Jon does and interview people, Scientologists in the UK, in Australia. I mean, like it's an international religion, but it said they focus on Hollywood, and they focus on the same maybe 7 or 10 ex-members that were very high in the executive positions. They never just interview the average Scientologist, you know what I mean? Like the average people that join. So you never get to, for me, you never seem to get a really good glimpse into what people were thinking. And I don't think just interviewing ex-members is a good way to understand a religion, because they've left. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not part of the religion anymore.
But in at least, I'm not sure about going clear, but at least in my Scientology movie, there was a concerted effort to try and interview any members, an absolute concerted effort. The church chose not to do that. The church chose to try and control its PR by doing this method of, what do they call it? Fair game. So that doesn't work. Fair game doesn't work if you've got a global focus on you. There needs to be like an openness and understanding. We can see that through how the Catholic Church is portrayed in regard to the child sex scandals and pedophilia scandals and now nun scandals as well, which no one really speaks about, but that's a thing as well. So no one, you've got this global focus on the church, and the church is just silent about it, and it creates this aspect of people then need to find information about it, and how then reporters deal with it is that they're trying to seek out people to talk about the thing, to ask them the hard questions, yes, but to try and give it a fair hearing. And if there's actually absolute dead radio silence, then of course you're going to interview ex-members.
Definitely.
I don't think it's the fault of the interviewers in some regards. Now, going clear is a different thing. You're right, felt like an expose, but I don't want to diminish particularly the women and the family people who were asked to have that separation from their families who remained in the church because they made a choice to speak out against the church or didn't do things instead, like in lockstep of how the church community exists. And those individuals have then been pushed out of the church and now have complete separation from their family, their friends, and community that they previously did. So I think that it in all fairness, we have to actually recognize, well, that's a problem. That's absolutely a problem of the church and how it exists. And it exists in a way that it believes it's against the world. That's how it is.
It's not a smart strategy, and I think David Miscavige is pretty much entirely to blame for that. I don't think it was as secretive under L. Ron Hubbard, and I don't know whether maybe there was aspects of it, but I think David Miscavige is wildly mismanaged it and basically created a whole environment of chasing after people, and they would get so much better publicity if they just allowed people to leave and just left it like that. But it's this whole horrible thing that they do where they chase after people, which makes everything worse. I just feel like they should just kind of just let it kind of chill out, because that's just not helping them in any way.
It doesn't help them proselytize as well, because if you don't have a public face that's actually trying to get new members as part of the church, then you do have less members that are joining because you're reliant on people just on the street signing up people. And that's going to make things less and less. You need to have these stars of the church which are actually going to bring people along. Tom Cruise, yes, he's a star. I don't know if he speaks to the average person, though. He would speak to a aspiring actor or actress or someone who's aspiring to be great in life. But for family people, I struggle to see why a family would want to actually join a church if you've got that guy and the interview which he gave.
I imagine something happened after either before Going Clear or during Going Clear, which burnt a lot of bridges for media. Like, I think that they probably felt like that made it harder for Louis coming in, while that was in the works. Like, I think that there was probably some sort of policy that Miscavige or higher up that they put in that media like is totally off limits now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I would imagine.
Yep. Yeah. And they've gone into complete hiding basically, and now we scrounge around perhaps to try and form a good opinion or a true opinion of what the religion actually is. And yeah, the answer from them might be, okay, join, and then you'll find out. But no other religion requires you to do that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, well, there's secret societies. I mean, there are societies which are very secretive that you couldn't access. You know, like the stonemasons, I couldn't go and access at meetings and things like that.
You can access certain aspects of it, but you can't be part of their service. No.
No, because I'm a woman, right? Only men can join, I believe.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Freemasons. What am I saying? What are they called?
Yeah, Freemasons. Yeah.
Whatever. But I mean, like, there's is it fraternities, but there's groups that you can't just join that are really secretive. But the difference is that when their ex-members leave, they don't follow them around and harass them, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if they do.
Yeah. No, I think so, and I think that you'd have this aspect of, okay, a rule would come down that you can't actually talk to that person, or that they get struck off, and that happens in certain Christian groups as well, which particularly those in New South Wales, there's a number of them, which are evangelical style groups, and if you leave, then you are dead to the group and dead to the families or the brethren.
Yeah, well, just like the ultra orthodox stuff we watched, like they would similarly hound people that left, right? You couldn't just make a clean break, and they were very protective of their way of life. So perhaps Scientology in some sense is similarly just trying to protect its way of life, and if they had people that leave, it could fracture away. And I don't know, but I did see some similarities in just the sort of the real aggressive tactics that both would deploy at some point, and I'm not saying that they're the same, but I do think that the group sort of think mentality maybe is similar. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Okay, so we're agreeing.
Should we talk about Jon Ronson?
I think we should disagree on something.
Oh, okay.
No,
should we talk about Jon Ronson's one? Go in order now.
Yeah, sure. So Ronson, Ronson's interview is really funny. I liked it. I really liked it. I think Georgina Roberts. So there's a woman that's there who's prodding people and prods Edward, the old doctor, to speak at certain points. I think that there's some organisation that they've gone to. So the members, I feel that they may have discussed what they should have said in this interview process.
It also seemed like they knew each other quite well. Like all of them knew each other to me.
Yeah. But what throws it a little bit is, so there's Lizzie Calcoli, who is, she says she's Jewish, and
no, she is. Her parents are Polish Jewish, and she's also Neil Gaiman's sister, which I found out.
Oh, is she Neil Gaiman's sister? Okay, mm-hmm. Right. Okay, so she's Jewish. Yeah, and she joined the church after a debaucherous life of trying to sleep with many men, apparently. She says.
Yeah, that the whole description was made me so uncomfortable.
Yeah. So she's not controlled in that situation and conversation, and sort of throws the conversation a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
But what I sensed from watching those people and watching, Scientologists who are card-carrying members who believe in the religion, and they keep saying it's a religion, and it's pointed because, that's the time when the tax thing was happening. So, they have to make it clear that, yes, it's a religion, blah, blah. Just fine. It's like I've hung around, with former employers and groups that I've been part of. It feels like I'm just listening to a group of Anglicans talking. That's all it felt like. It's not like they're not out there. They weren't attacking. They weren't trying to convince Ronson or the audience of being in a certain, experience. They're just saying, yeah, this is beneficial to me. Georgina says at one point that L. Ron Hubbard really westernized what Eastern religions have understood for some time, but he actually got down further into the truth and really got into what it is to be a human person. I think that that's actually really refreshing, because then it gives you a clear indication of why these people are members of a church and religion. So yes, you might have, and this is what comes up afterwards for the latter documentaries. You might have this aspect of the upper church trying to push for money to be given to it for, untoward enterprises. But I don't think, like you said at the beginning of this pod, I don't think, your regular members believe that and think that. And I think Ronson's comes the closest to actually showing what just your regular Joe and Jane who are part of this religion, go to work every day and then will attend the church on, I don't even know what day that they attend Scientology, but then they go for their meetings and their one-to-one meetings, what they actually believe. And I think this is the closest to it. What do you think?
Definitely. And it was such a nice, diverse group of people. Pardon?
Sorry, you've sat down with Scientologists. So is that the feeling you've got?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just getting bad connection issues. But that's one of the reasons I really like this, is because it was a look into people that seemed very real. And I don't know what you thought, Ben, but I felt very with Going Clear and all the ex-members that left, and definitely Marty Rathburn as well, that they did not seem like normal people. They seemed to me like either quite unhinged, to be perfectly honest, kind of people, and people that, not all of them, but there just was like a aspect of it, and maybe it's because they're American, but there was just something that seemed a little not quite authentic, whereas these people to me seemed very authentic. They were just sitting down, and it was also because Ronson was a very polite, friendly facilitator of that conversation. He didn't push, he didn't prod, and I love Louis Theroux, but Louis Theroux does sort of not sarcastically, but he pushes little buttons. He does, but I did not feel like he was Ronson was. I'm sorry, I'm getting Rathburn and Ronson a little mixed up, but Ronson wasn't doing that in the interviews, because Louis got that snide little like little, especially you could see him with Rathburn really pushing his buttons, which we could talk about later. But that's what I really liked about it. It just felt more authentic to me. And also it's probably because it was prior to 2000, and when maybe the church was getting more paranoid about media, so maybe they did feel more open and to be able to share. But when I've been to the Sydney Church of Scientology there on Castle Ray Street, it felt like they did a tour. So Chris Hartney, often, he doesn't do it anymore, but he would take classes in one of our units into the church and do a tour, and would get to see the facilities, and the Australian Scientologists would give a presentation. But it was very facilitated, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that we got like a inside scoop. It was very orchestrated, but I found them very polite. They do a lot of work on mental health, which is really interesting, that not many people really talk about. So they really advocate for the idea that there is no such thing as a healthy mind, that every mind is healthy, and which, I don't never agree to disagree, but in Australia they did a lot of crackdown in the, when sort of mental health was doing a lot of suspicious things, that shock therapy and things like that, and they were really influential in sort of shutting some of that down in Sydney, some of those psychiatric wards, which is really interesting. So they do a lot of things that you don't really get to hear much about. So and they have a drug rehab center, like they do other stuff. So I think this was a lot truer to the experiences I've had in Scientology, but I know in America there's something different, or there's something extra happening there, and it's not good. So that's what I think we're probably also getting is the UK version of Scientology, not the Hollywood version. So I think that just shows in the interview.
Yeah, I think so. But I also think, with Going Clear, the interview is with people that are now outside of the church, but they're in trauma. And so, yeah, the unhinged aspect where you are saying, I think some of them are deeply, deeply hurt by that experience. and they try and portray that in somewhat of a calm manner, and it just doesn't happen because it's a traumatic experience. Like, you've been thrown out of this aspect and thrown out of your own community. You still share some of those beliefs. Rathburn still shares some of the beliefs of Scientology. You just can't practice in the way that he used to, and he disagrees with the organization. And then that makes you seem like you're saying two things at once, and it looks unhinged. So I think you're right, and I think you're correct in the difference between American and British Scientology, but I also think it's a class aspect. With the British one, you've got people which are the regular members, not the high aspects of the church. If you sat down with a Christian bishop, as opposed to Christian laity, you are going to get very different responses, and that's the same thing we are experiencing here. I liked how Edward Hamlin, the old doctor, was like, so he's 70 odd in that video, and then he's saying this story about how he felt really unwell, and he went to the front door and he pressed the doorbell, and then he just died, and then like his wife, like, yelled at him, basically said, "Get the fuck up," and then he's miraculously rescued because it's in this book. And then there's the book that Scientology have. I think that's very funny, and that reminded me a lot of Protestant religion and Protestants that were spoken to and sat down with the aspect of healing and prayer and faith and laying on hands and that sort of stuff. Because it's owned by the laity, that experience, and that's what this religion is. It's not owned by a priesthood. I think it's a very funny way and a funny recount of how he actually explained it, and everyone's just around the table like sort of laughed, going, "Oh my gosh, you died, and then you came back to life! Wow!"
You definitely get a glimpse into how this is a way of life that it really affects every day. Like, it's not just something that they go in and do, sit down for church. It's something that really sticks with them. And I'm not saying that churchgoers don't either, but it's sort of like it's more of a philosophy, it seems to me, than particularly, a religious philosophy, I guess. But I really like the part where, I'm going to keep looking. Jon Ronson says something like, "Is that when you guys sit outside and solicit people to fill in your survey?" So she starts talking about auditing. I think it's one of the, forget which lady it is. It must be Georgina. Georgina starts talking about it, and he interrupts me like, "Oh, is that what you said?" And they all just look really awkward. They're like, "No," and there's a bit of a laughter. And then later when they talk about it, he goes, "Oh, is this when you stand outside?" They're like, "Yeah." But I really liked that moment where everyone was sort of laughing, and he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." It was a really sweet moment.
Yeah. Ronson's very that experience, and he's I don't know if you've seen much of his other stuff, but that's his style of engaging with people, and it's quite like he comes from very I don't know. He approaches all interviews almost like a child. This level of innocence, going, "Oh, I'm interested in that. Wow, is that what happens?" And really, he's trying to get into what's going on. When he was speaking, just as a side note, on the book he wrote about being publicly shamed and why he wrote that book, it was the one moment when he actually snapped, because he's being publicly shamed and slammed online, and he tries and sat down with these like trolls basically to see what was their motivation, and to try and explain like, no, that's not what I'm actually about, and they just didn't give a fuck, and he ended up just telling them just to fuck off, and like he's very polite, but he's at that point. And that's the only time with all of the interviews and all the books, everything that I've seen of him. Every other time he's just had this childhood innocence, and
no, he's he's very sweet. I hadn't really seen anything of his before, so it was really like, I really enjoyed his interview style. To me, he's like Louis, but a sweeter version of Louis. And I love Louis, but a sweeter version of Louis, like a little less edgy. But because I told you I also watched his kidney, Jesus wants my kidney or something. Other story he did on the Jesus Christians, because as listeners might remember, we've had Jerry come on a little while ago, a long time now, and talk about the Jesus Christians. So I'd heard bits and pieces, but I didn't really realize that was the video, and I watched it and it was really interesting, very interesting. Maybe we'll do another Jesus Christians episode to talk more about it. But yeah, I thought he tries really hard to give like a balanced account, and actually the leader of the Jesus Christians, Dave McKay, that's what he wanted, and he actually invited him to do an interview of them, and then it all kind of turned to shit. So maybe that's a story for another day. But overall, this was by far, I think, the most accurate, maybe not accurate, but to me seemed most authentic version of what Scientology is, without all the kind of, and I'm going to say a lot of it's self-created. I'm not trying to apologize for Scientology. I think that they have a lot to answer for, especially in America, and especially the way they treat members. But I thought this just was a nice glimpse compared to the others of just what real, genuine people believed and what they get out of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think moving forward, is there anything else you want to talk about the Ronson thing? Because then we can talk about the other two side by side, or the other three side by side, as an expose, I guess, of the upper echelons of the church.
The other thing is that I think that I just want to quickly say that there's an aspect, I think, of financial gain for these documentaries. And I think what sells is the Hollywood, the really kind of juicy thing. So I think that's one of the reasons too why, not just because they can't find current members, but they also want to make something that's going to sell more. So I think that's also an aspect. And this is maybe why this interview's didn't seem to get as much media attention, the Jon Ronson one.
Yeah, but it's also,
you know what I mean? It's not as sexy.
Yeah, true. But there is an aspect to the upper echelons of the church which is mysterious, and the media interviews in regard to ex-members which focus, fundamentally and primarily on the negative aspects of that upper organization, is not counteracted by any information that comes from the church. And the counteraction is attacks and litigation. So there's
definitely. But no, I think that's it. So do we want to now talk about going clear?
Sure. Yeah. So going clear. Like I said, I think that a lot of the members that are pushed out of the church and have experienced that trauma, I think it is valid. And there is certain aspects to how the church has protected itself by, purifying its own religion and seeing it against the world. So I think that's a problem. But yeah, going clear. Look, I think if there were some interviews from the church that defended its position, then it might have just been a back and forth. It might have been the right choice by the church not to be part of that documentary and just treated it like an expose. I don't know. It's a hard decision. It's a hard thing. Like, what do you do when you're being attacked in that way by these ex-members who may have been mistreated, but you want to protect the sanctity of your own religion?
Yeah, definitely. And I also, so I want to say two things. One is that I think that there's been a lot of those ex-members have had horrible things happen to them. And I really believe that, and that there's a lot, being abused and all that sort of stuff is horrible. But I also want to say that just by leaving, it doesn't mean that you're not responsible for the actions that you did when you were in that church. And I felt, especially with Rathburn, a lot of trying to shift the blame for the horrible things he did in bullying other ex-members when he left. And I think that's what Louis tries to tap into in Going Clear, because it is not an excuse enough to me. And I'm sorry, but I do not believe that people are brainwashed. I believe that people can be manipulated, but I don't believe that Scientology sits them there and repeats them in their sleep with little headphones that is like, woohoo, Scientology is good. But they have a hold because they have your connections, their family. That is a very powerful influence. I believe that. But I just don't like the fact how they try and shift all responsibility of the actions that they did and say, oh, I was brainwashed. Oh, I was in a cult. Oh, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't leave. And I don't know. I don't know what you think, Ben, but I find that really kind of problematic, because it means that then, does that mean if I'm joining another religion and I abuse my child or I spank them because that's how I was taught to, that's okay because I was indoctrinated? Or there's so many other examples we could use in other religions. Oh, but I was brainwashed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think you're right. Theroux does push on this aspect and pushes it for Marty in particular because, Marty didn't want to go to the hole. So Marty didn't want to have the treatment that he had given to other people. Is that the only reason why he's not part of that church anymore? Like, he has done a lot of reform afterwards, but I think that's a valid thing to ask on Louis' behalf.
Yep.
Yeah, and only Marty can answer that, really. Who knows? What his actual view is.
Yeah, I want to see if you could explain this to me, because I have trouble believing too that someone would do things like, when they were giving this story and going clear about the mother with her baby and being, I don't know whether that was the whole, but being in some kind of living on the rooftop in a sleeping bag and some appalling conditions where you're scrubbing the things, and then she goes up and her child's been like mistreated. What is happening that person just can't leave? Like, I know that the family's there. Like, why? What is the pull? I couldn't understand it, because I think I would like to believe that if I hated something so much after a year, I would go, well, this isn't for me, off I trot. So what is it that they have on people?
Well, that's the question: why people stay in abusive relationships. It's the same fundamental aspect, and it comes down to that. Now, that's a microcosm, and this is a macrocosm in relation to Scientology. So, microcosm is experience. So, say you're in an abusive relationship, you've got your kids there, you've got your household, all of your possessions, and who knows what it feels like to be over the other side of the fence. So, it takes a certain personality type to be able to jump, and another type of personality type to stay in that experience. And I think that this is where religions, which mistreat people, take advantage of that different type of personality. It's people who are in vulnerable experiences. So to be critical of Scientology, do they have the drug rehab aspect of their religion, and do they speak out against or speak for mental health in order to prey upon people who are vulnerable, so that they can get members from those groups, and are they doing that because they are doing it of the goodness of their own heart, or are they doing it for the ends of trying to grow their own faith? And I think the answer is grey. I don't think that there is a cognition of a organisation. Like, organisations don't have brains. Individuals have brains as part of that, but there is groupthink that is taking place for all organisations, and it is in the organisations, it is in the individuals' benefit to have a healthy and strong organisation that it is behind and under. So, yeah, I can see that they would be trying to push for more members, and they might find it easier just to sign up people who are suffering in that way.
I don't know, Ben, but what's weird is that most of these people weren't young people beforehand. They weren't grown. Like, I know when we're doing the British one, that those were children that were. So they were probably indoctrinated to Scientology very early on. But a lot of the people in this joined when they're like 3 years ago or 5 years ago. They joined us as adults. You know what I mean? They weren't, because I know a lot of religions, they, if you're indoctrinated at a young age, I think it's very difficult to want to leave because that's your whole life. But these people, they go in, I guess also the whole Hollywood aspect. I mean, they get connections as well. Like they get benefits of joining. They get, relationships. They get Hollywood connections. They get acting classes as well, and they obviously get something out of it. I don't know. I just find the whole thing difficult to wrap my head around, because then and then when they leave, it's like everything about it was awful and it was the worst thing in the world. It's like, well, why did you join the beginning? Like, what the fuck?
Well,
Can't have it both ways.
I think that they're unhappy, and I don't think that it's an age-based thing. I think people can be indoctrinated and they'd be very late in life.
I guess
an age base to it. I think it has an aspect of that person's personality at that point where they're seeking out the sense of community, and they find it. And it's very welcoming. It looks very welcoming from the outside. All religions do.
Yeah. I guess I think I just find it hard because I'm not religious, so I don't know what it is that pulls people in. I just don't understand.
Yeah, if we turn the tables on you, so you do certain things with certain groups where you feel like you're pulled into that situation. So you're cat protection, and then also So that's the same thing. It's a sense of community, and you're pushing towards a certain ends, and then you feel like there is this welcomeness, and then you are there on a Sunday morning complaining that fuck, I've got to do this market to sell some shit.
Yeah, but I like doing the markets. I don't like vaccinating people's cats, but I do like doing the markets. But I still feel fully in control, Ben. Like normally that I could say no, or and I would never hurt anybody for my beliefs. You know what I mean? I would never punch somebody square in the face because they weren't complying to my love for cats. Do you know what I'm saying?
I understand that.
I think that's
you don't. Your whole world is in that space.
Yeah,
imagine
that's
if your mother was just in there, and imagine if your family was just in there, Tom's family was just in there, and you and I didn't speak, and you didn't go to a secular university, but you're going to an education facility that's attached to that.
So you mean in Scientology, not Cat World?
Well, this is Cat World. So Tara's
sorry. Okay.
I
don't know. I don't think it's very comparable, but I see what you're trying to say.
I think I don't imagine a world too far different where we all could be pushed into this situation. Whether we've got the personality then to just break out of that or not.
Well, I mean, but the difference is, Ben, you wouldn't hurt somebody for your beliefs, would you? Would you punch somebody in the face because of your beliefs? Or if somebody told you in that church to go and harass people and follow them with cameras, would you do it? I wouldn't do it.
No, physical violence is not something that I do. And also, you know this about me. I'm a bit of an introvert, and I don't like hanging around with people normally. So being asked for me to follow someone around is the least interesting thing to do ever. So I think I'm probably not the right type of personality for a recruit for a cult. And I think that's probably the same for you as well. But
I hear what you're saying. I think comparing to being in an abusive relationship has helped me understand it a bit more. And I do feel really sad that people lose those connections with their family. And I'm not trying to say that it's not sad and that Scientology isn't, manipulating people. But I guess I'm just trying to maybe position a little bit more responsibility to an individual in the decisions they make in their lives as well. I think that's also important.
I think you're right, and I think that's valid. But I think it's particularly valid in relation to the crimes that someone might commit. I don't think it's the fault of the victim of being part of the organisation if that's their entire world.
I agree.
And this is where the hierarchy of the church or the hierarchy of the organisation needs to take some responsibility. The problem is...
and also, just being a leaver does not resolve you from the crimes that you committed while you're in there. And I just think that that's just not cool.
Yeah, that's right. But the problem in all of this is we know Miscavige is the head of the church. Okay, so aside from that, we know very little about the organisational structure. And we know that there's these OT levels that you progress up, and that's basically it. You don't know about a bishop's office or the pope or, the church structure and the diocesan level and all of that. We know about other religions that have been around for a long period of time. you know, from what we know, there's one person the head of this organization and church, and the rest of the ministry, really.
Yep.
And he can't be making every decision for every single member. That's not possible.
No,
It's
true.
It's not possible physically, time-wise, mentally. It's not possible for one person to do that. So there must be some organizational structure there, and that organizational structure has to take responsibility for some of the bad things and the good things that religion does. And shining a light on that actually might, in the end, get them more adherence if their religion is doing all of the good, which some of their members have said.
Definitely. And I hope that they will sort their shit out. Like, they need to.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and also, you know, they need to work with the public. I think being secretive is not helping them at all. Like, they need to be able to speak and be more open. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, as far as a religious career spans, I mean, they're in the very infancy of establishing themselves as a religion compared to other religions, which for thousands of years have had conflicts, they've had rifts within the churches, they've had wars, you know what I mean? So, you know, I'm hoping they develop into something.
Schisms and reform is part of a church organization's existence, as it is for a political organization or any other organization. That schisms and reform is the way of a religion, and that's the reality. And that would actually maybe bring more strength to the church, but they might not be able to see that at this point because it's very hard. I think when you've got a lot of shit on your plate, how do you deal with stuff?
I also want to say is that I think they're also very paranoid because it was so difficult for them to establish themselves as a religion through tax exemption. So I think that has also not helped the situation because they, you know, and I think that I believe they were always a legitimate religion. Whether they should hoard that much cash, and I think it's going clear, they show how much billions and billions of dollars they have. I don't think that's particularly good. But I mean, I'm sure there's other churches and religions, if we check their bank accounts, they have quite a bit of moolah just sitting there. I don't know whether that's true or not, but
they would.
Yeah.
Of course. Like that's a natural thing because the priesthood or the organization needs to pay for itself. And then you've got the administration arm. And then you also have the aspect of a church, which is an expansion role and an education role. And then there's all of the other costs, such as building maintenance and everything else. It is natural for an organization to have a kitty of money. Like an organization cannot exist without a kitty of money. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's a bad thing.
Well, I just looked at Vatican apparently has 920 million in stocks and bonds and things like that. So
I'd suggest that they have more than that because they also have artworks and relics and everything. Land. Yeah. So I think that's going to be. I think that's actually a small figure compared to what I thought it would be. But you're talking about one of the biggest religions in the world, which then has one of the biggest organizational aspects in the world, which also runs education facilities all around the world, and has an employed priesthood and an administration arm. So when you look at it like that, I think it's very, very simplistic and you get this a lot of the time, and it's a lot of the time from either high-end atheists, so, you know, like your Dawkins of the world, or people that come from a very strong evangelical Reformation aspect of the world. They'll point to Jesus's piety and his poverty, say, see, look, you know, Jesus is in poverty, but look at the church organization that's got this amount of money. It does a lot of charity work as well. So, for me, money in an organization and a religion doesn't actually mean it's bad either. I think it's a reality. It goes for Scientology as well. They've got buildings and e-meters must be fucking expensive.
I mean, why else would Rathburn have bothered stealing them? No, but just on the tax thing though, that took them years and years and years to establish themselves as a religion, and you know, those people were protesting and they got a lot of negative rap. You know, a lot of people would not see. They look at the money, they look at the aliens, and they go, not legitimate, right?
Yeah, and it's Christians.
That was hard.
The thing as well that we are outside of American evangelical Christian world. The ethos of America existing as the land of the free and the whole enterprise is on a religious persecution that they faced in England. And they left that place to establish themselves, and they killed a lot of native people in doing so, have a free evangelical space for their religion. And so when you've got a new religion that props it, that is created, and it believes in a alien overlord which did a lot of bad shit and killed some people, and then there's thetans which are inside you, where is Jesus in all of that? And that's where I think a lot of the people that actually spoke out about it, I don't know it for certain, but I would not be surprised if a lot of them are evangelicals.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's
and
alien to Australian history. We don't really have that because we've got, a colonial enterprise and a multicultural immigrant population here, and we don't get that.
Yeah. No, I think that burnt them a lot and made them more paranoid and more distrusting because they felt that they weren't getting the recognition and respect that they felt they deserved as a religion. And I'm not saying that's an excuse, but I'm just saying that I think that has played into the narrative of paranoia. And what other thing did I like about, or that I noticed about my Going Clear? Just that they talk a lot about the recording and the auditing sessions, and I found this a bit frustrating. That they use this particularly to dig up dirt on famous people to be able to use it as blackmail against them later, and they didn't really talk about the fact that they're recorded on purpose for the people doing the auditing to be able to reflect on their listening skills. So, when I was in the Sydney church, they talked about how they would listen back and they would look up any words that they didn't know, so that they were making sure that their transcriptions were really accurate. So there's a reason that they record, and it's not just to you dig up dirt. I'm not saying that they don't utilize that, but I just felt that that's what was the problem with Going Clear. They're just omitting so much information and context that would have really made a fuller picture of why Scientology does what it does.
Yeah.
So that was something I noticed.
It's a key tenet of their belief structure in order for you to talk to someone and then have that written down and then progressing up the levels.
Exactly.
That's how it's weird. Yeah. All religions, if you look at that as weird, all religions are weird as well.
Yeah, it's true. And then I think there was one other thing I want to say about. Do you have anything else you want to say about Going Clear?
No, and I think that connects to the Vice doc. I've said all I wanted to in relation to the Vice interview. Yeah.
Have we got anything else? Oh, just the one other thing is that the Going Clear just felt very ignorant about new religious movements in general, because they, when they're talking about Hubbard joining Aleister Crowley, and there's like all these like sex images and like, I don't know, I found it very like, and then he joined a crazy orgy sex cult and all this sort of stuff, and I just thought that would just show that they're also just explaining a lot of things that's very typical in all new religious movements as something that means that Scientology is particularly bad. I just found that quite frustrating. Just like it was really trying. To me, it felt just like a mudslinging campaign to just make Scientology look as evil as possible, and I think they did a really good job on it.
Yeah, I think so. But I've already said it. I think that the contrary voice would have helped. But if I was on the opposite end, I don't know. I don't know if I would have been interviewed. If there was an expose about me, whether I'd go on there and I knew that everyone was attacking me.
Yeah, it's so true. And not to say that there's not evil people in the organization. There's not evil people in the executive organization. There's not evil things that Scientology has done. I don't outright think that Scientology is evil as the religion.
Yeah.
But we seem to be in agreement of pretty much everything. So this is probably boring for listeners. We're going to find something to argue about, and I think we're going to argue about Rathburn because I actually hated every aspect about him. So.
Really?
Well, not every aspect, but I found him really not I just distrusted him. I don't know. There's something about him I didn't quite like.
No, I think he's broken, like a broken.
Yeah.
And I think that the reform aspect in which he said gives you an indication of where he sees or saw himself. But I think that he's gone so far down the path of actually talking about the truths of the religion and being a warrior of that religion and now being outside of that religion, that it's difficult to hear that, because he's talking about the bad aspects which he did as part of it with just very factual. This is what happens. This is what takes place. So, yeah, I can understand how you would not trust him. But yeah, he's...
Yeah. Do you know that he came out really against Louis, the Louis documentary? He actually came out really against his part in it.
Yeah.
He was not happy with it. So he wrote in his blog, he said, the extended filming was interrupted repeatedly by Theroux's recurring attempts to use me as bait to incite the wrath of the Church of Scientology. When Theroux persisted with those efforts, his and director John Dower's promises that none of that horseplay would make it into the film began to ring hollow. At that point, I expressed my intention to cease to work on the project. So he was really bitter. When nearly 2 years later I saw The Product, my Scientology movie, which clearly referred to being Louis Theroux's personal movie, I came to the conclusion that Mr. Chin, who's the producer, had regressed into a tabloid hack. Mr. Theroux remained the arse clown Chin had represented he would not be, and Mr. Dower was a roomless zero, a lackey assigned to pretend to direct while he did nothing more than provide plausible deniability that my Scientology movie was something other than the latest unoriginal Theroux shtick vehicle aimed at clowning with Scientology. So he actually comes out as defensive for defending the Scientologists and saying that Louis provoked them and that the Scientologists were totally provoked, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, Scientology, like the whole thing is provoked because he's not being given the free microphone. And he says that in the movie, like when they're talking outside, they're filming and then they go for a break outside, and then there's Scientologists that come and film, and then they sort off. And yeah, so Theroux's like Marty gets the shits with him at that point, which I think is quite funny. And you're right, Theroux does that little prodding,
yeah,
and he knows what he's doing. And the point in that changes, I think, is the valid thing that Theroux asks. Like, you're part of this religion, you're part of it. You know, and you did those things. And Marty gets the shits with that. Like,
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true, but like the fact that he says that Louis purposely is provoking Scientologists, I don't know whether, I think going back to the headquarters and stuff obviously was provocative, but
using Marty to provoke the Scientologists, and absolutely he would be. Theroux wanted an experience with Scientology as authentic as he possibly could. And if he has to use the biggest bait to try and get them out to start to talk with them, then so be it.
It just seems funny. It sounds like almost though that Rathburn's sympathizing with Scientology, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, I think that he's just being anti-Theroux. I don't think he's in favour of the Scientologists at that point, or if he's either way.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I found that part of it a bit strange, but I just found Rathburn, and in the Vice interview, how he kept kind of promoting his books and being like, oh, please refer to my book that I wrote. I just feel like I just don't trust him as a reliable source. You thought you liked the Vice interview? It just felt like, if you want to read more, view my book. And there's like come out like 4 times.
I liked the Vice interview more than Going Clear, because I think it gave a clearer indication, you know, beyond the bullshit of that and beyond the aspects which we'd already heard in my Scientology movie and in Going Clear. Rathburn gives an indication of what the religion is. And I also liked, I thought it was quite comical, the interviewer getting, what's it called when you e-read? The audited. Yeah, when the interviewer is being audited and then just comes out with, I'm just not happy. And
like, yeah.
Well, fuck
that interview, he was so strange. He didn't seem interested at all in any of the questions he was asking. It was sort of like, oh, so tell me about Scientology. And then Marty would say it, and then he would say, and then he just move on to the next question. There was no, like, it was like it was very unnatural interview to me. Like, he didn't then circle back and say, oh, tell me more about that. It was like, no, we're going through these questions. I'm not actually listening to the answer. I'm just wanting to move to the next question. He just looked so depressed and needing to do a poo like the whole interview. That's what I said before, and just like super unhappy to be there. I don't know what was going on for that guy that day, but like I just felt like he did not want to be interviewing that person, like Marty, at that moment.
Well, I think Vice is very hit and miss anyway. Like they're not. Well, yeah, we've already said it, but I already very much like the Ronson, Safran, that style of interview, just getting to know people and sitting down and actually breaking that boundary. Whereas Vice is really a presentation with other people as guest stars.
Yeah.
And I think that's what this was trying to be. The problem is that the interviewer was not very interesting. Yeah.
What order did you watch them in? 'Cause I wonder if that sort of changed how you thought about it.
That's a good question. I watched it in the order that I wrote it. So, I watched, what did I do? I watched Louis Theroux first, and then Going Clear, and then Ronson, and then the Vice interview.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I went Going Clear, Rathburn, Ronson, Louis. Watched Louis this morning.
Rathburn, Ronson. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to watch the Rathburn close to when I watched Going Clear because I felt like it was connected more. I actually thought I got nothing new, no new information at all from the Vice interview. It actually was by far my least favorite. So I'm interested to know why you liked it.
It was the aspect where he's talking about how he was trying to be a reform voice as part of the church.
Yeah, but that's one of the reasons they hate him so much is because they're really protective of their techniques and their auditing. I mean, even Harvard was shutting down groups that formed and left. So that's like I feel like if he let go of that and stopped trying to audit and do the therapy outside of the church, would actually leave him alone. Not that that's what should happen, but I believe that's why they're so aggressive with him.
No, I think it's because he's very vocal and he's so well known.
I mean, possibly too.
Yeah. I mean, the Catholic Church hated a lot of early reform people as well. So I think it's natural for an organization to hate someone who's trying to reform the church. It's just interesting that person that's trying to reform the church was a archetype of the church.
Definitely.
Previously.
Yeah, he just didn't seem to be very like it felt like he needs to go, that he wasn't really like reflecting much on the things that he had done. And that's what I felt in the My Scientology movie, that when Louis was prodding him with that, there didn't seem to be a lot of remorse, and there also seemed to be a little bravado or pride in the role that he had.
Yeah.
In that he felt a bit like, oh, I was his top dog, or I was his like, I don't know, I was they even refer it to a gun or something, or some sort, I can't remember the term, but like I was the alpha, whatever the equivalent was, I can't remember, but that he was the bee's knees of that, and I felt like there's a little part of him that, I don't know, reveled in that position, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's where Scientology's got him bent over, because they've said to, actually he was just a nothing.
Yeah, he was so offended, that part, right? When Louis was reading the letter.
And that's obviously not the case, because, there's photos and evidence showing the opposite. But what better way to get to someone who's completely narcissistic to then go, sorry, who are you? It's so good.
Oh, it's funny. And I loved when my favorite part in the My Scientology movie is when they're both filming. So when they go back to the base site or whatever the second time, and they're talking to one of the left member's wife, forgotten her name, Susie or something, and she was seeing the car, and the little David Miscavige, or was it the Tom Cruise actor, was there standing near with him, and he's filming with his little iPhone camera.
Yeah, the Miscavige.
Yeah.
He's
the
never.
little Miscavige.
Yeah.
But he's filming, and then and then she's like, "Can you tell him to stop filming?" And Lou's like, "Can you tell him to stop filming?" And she's like, "No, can you get that camera out of my face?" And Lou's like, "Can you get your camera out of my face?" And they just go back and forth. Yeah. It was like 5 times. It was so funny. Like that was my favorite moment. Just hilarious. I like that moment. And oh man, like Louis just must have the like strongest nerves. Like he's just not flappable, is he?
No, he's not. Yeah, his interview, we mentioned it, so I think last episode, where he's talking to the Nazis and he's got them.
Yeah.
Doesn't give a fuck. Like he's like, that's
Yeah, so, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And he's always like, "Are you feeling nervous? Are you feeling nervous?" And the other guy's like, "No." And he's like, "Really? You're not feeling a little bit nervous?" Like he's just funny the way he does that. I don't know. I love Louis, but I felt like Louis, I guess I agree a little bit with Rathburn's critique. He was very provocative. I mean, it's because he wasn't getting the footage he wanted. He had to try and make it drama, right? So he created it by visiting the site.
And he's created the whole, like, with heaps of actors, orchestrated and directed by a former member. The whole thing is like, it's ridiculous to try and do that. But he's only doing that, and again I say he's only done that because the church didn't give him any interviews.
Agreed. It feels like a bit of a hissy fit, doesn't it?
Yeah, they could have just given him an interview, and then he would have probably dropped Rathburn and then actually just attached to that person and hung around with them for an hour and a half, and that would have just been as cool.
Totally. My other favorite moment when they're doing I forget what they call it, where they're doing the yell therapy. I forget their name, but basically they yell at each other, and there's a woman sitting opposite, an actress sitting opposite Louis, trying to do like the whole like, "You're a piece of shit," and Louis just sitting there being like, and the woman's like, so he's doing this face like, "Oh, I don't really care," and he's like, "You're a terrible like interviewer. Your wife is cheating with you with somebody else, like your brother," and he's like, "Yeah," like just does not give a shit. That was great.
Yeah. And then when Rathburn sits down in front of him, straight away.
And Lou's like, "Can you not do that?" Yeah.
It's very funny.
I like they're probably my two favorite. Oh no, my favorite moment is when the woman at the pool just walks in while they're interviewing and is like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah. The
so weird.
They say like the porn person or actress or something, and then Louis says, is she
a honeypot?
Honeypot, yes. That's so good.
It's amazing. They got so much footage for people that obviously had such limitations, They got such good footage.
That was, I love that part. So funny.
Do you have any other moments from Louis that you liked?
No, just my favorite bit about the whole movie, I think, if we could just get the snippets of the road, or not, and then the ending, that's hilarious. That's quintessential Louis Theroux style. Like, it's very, very ridiculous, and there's no point to it at all. Nothing to do with the movie, but I like following the arc of whether the road is a public road or not.
So in My Scientology movie, when Louis first visits the headquarters, this is outside of LA. It's sort of the main studio where they do all their promotional films and things like that. And there's a lot of security, and there's like barbed wire and lights that go on. Anyway, so Louis, being typical Louis, keeps going there, which they obviously don't like. And then he's trying to write a letter to David Miscavige that basically says, "Can you please come in and do my interview?" And he keeps trying to hand it to him. Anyway, the first time he goes, this woman that I think her name's Susie comes in, tries to get him to move on, and threatens to call the police. And Louis keeps saying, "I'm on a public road." And she's like, "We own every bit of this land. See that hill over there? We own every aspect of it." And Louis like, "It's a public road." And she's like, "It's not a public road." And it goes back and and forth, and then it's repeated the second time he visits, and then as a big kind of FU to the whole process, at the rolling credits it says it was a public road. So that's what Benn's
the sign that says road closed, and and whether it's that area of the road which is closed or not. And this gets back to Theroux's UFO thing as well with Area 51. Like, where does the Area 51 end? And what if I throw a rock over there? And is that going to hit? Oh, it's going to hit Area 51. It's going to hit. So that's very, very Theroux.
You could tell he would have just been an obnoxious child, wouldn't he, Ben? He would have been very like provocative, I reckon.
Yeah.
Little troublemaker. But yeah, I like that. I like that about Louis. Like, even though they're very like intense subjects, it's always kind of a little bit funny. Whereas obviously through in Going Clear, and there's nothing funny about that at all.
No, yeah, it's a very it's only from that one perspective. So I'm glad
and very serious.
Yeah, and I'm glad we watched 4 very different things with this, and it was a lot of material. But I think it's a good thing for us to get this diverse aspect of understanding, particularly from laity and low end members to critique of high end organisation, and then everything in between as much as we can. I think that this is a fairer way of looking at the subject rather than just looking at Going Clear and My Scientology Movie and trying to make differences between the two. I think Ronson's interview actually clears up a lot of the church laity for me.
Definitely, and just so everybody knows, so the Jon Ronson For the Love of Scientology, Going Clear, Scientology in the Prison of Belief, and the Vice interview with Rathburn, they're all on YouTube. And My Scientology Movie, I watched on Stan. So if you have Stan, that's how I watched it.
It's Stan in Australia. Who the hell knows what happens in other countries? Because apparently
that's true.
Not universal, which is weird.
Yeah, but I would really recommend maybe watching the Ronson one first, and then watching My Scientology Movie, and then watching maybe Going Clear. I don't know. It depends what order you want to do it in. They're probably all worth watching to get a nice little relatively well-rounded. I mean, ideally would have had a Scientology created, I don't know, story, but we obviously didn't have one. But it'd be worth watching all 4.
Yeah, it did. Cool. All right.
Cool.
To close off. Where were you at now? OT 8, 9? What's the highest OT? There's OT where you're dead.
I think it's something like, so OT level 3 is when you're clear, I believe, and then I think there's maybe 5 other up there. So I think they said Tom Cruise was OT level 7, and he was the second highest. So I think maybe OT level 8 would be the highest, something like that. But so operating
on the realm of the physical world where your body is just left.
Yeah, that's right. But what's interesting is once you get to OT level 3, up to the levels of higher levels, you should be able to manipulate matter. So they call it MAST. So I think it stands for matter, area, space, and time. So you should be able to physically manipulate space and time once you reach that high level. But they did all these tests with people that were high up in that church. They did some scientific tests and asked them to demonstrate, and obviously none of them could because it's not real. But yeah, I think that's quite funny. Like, all right, prove it, and they're just sitting there and like can't do it because of course you can't. But anyway, yep. But no, nothing else except for that. I think it's important with new religious movements that we keep an open mind, but still hold them culpable for the crimes that they commit, for sure. So I hope when people listen in, they don't think I'm being either too apologetic or too harsh on Scientology.
Good. I think we've been fair.
Yeah.
Leave it for the listeners to judge. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Have a good week. Stay safe. Stay safe. Stay COVID safe, everyone.
Bye.